This media is brought to you by Polyscope.
In the realm of tomorrow, where techniques mind, we ponder, we dream.
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you because this is how we meet each other nowadays over Zoom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. No, my name's Carter Zink. I'm the co-founder of Spree, kind of leading the technology and product side of things. Kind of my story. I totally was convinced I was going to get a PhD in physics, and I went to school for physics and mathematics, and I still love it. I have a soft spot for the STEM and the sciences. I was doing National Science Foundation research, and I taught myself how to code, and kind of had to come to Jesus over COVID time, and I really recognized I had a fatal addiction, and that was to starting companies, and I
Mm,
kind of going back
that is
throughout.
fatal, man. That is totally
It's
fatal.
it's
It'll
what
get you.
they say, they say like the best or most common type of co-founder is one who can't help themselves. And
Yes.
if you go on my LinkedIn, it's like co-founder, co-founder, founder, co-founder. It's like I can't help it.
It's like
So
you
this
can't
is
get away from it. You
no,
cannot get away from it.
it's unavoidable. I'm sure after this is all great and things tie up somehow one way or another, I'm gonna do it again, and it's
Of
it's
course.
it's inevitable.
It is
Um,
it is an addiction. It's totally an addiction because
yeah.
it's just there's just so much fun. There's good times and bad times, but it's like you can't get away from it. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean, I
amazing.
think I remember Elon Musk quote, I think, a long time ago, maybe like 10 plus years. He says, like, starting companies and being a founder is like chewing glass and staring into the void. And I can relate once in a while to that.
But somehow the glass tastes really good. It's got
Yeah,
some
you
kind of
can
flavor to it.
some sort of delusion or something. There's a vision delusion where you think you're building something great, and I really think what I'm doing now is interesting. And kind of to segue to your second point about what I'm really passionate about. I got into crypto through, ironically, Dogecoin. I got
Hmm.
tipped some online, and I'm like, this is internet money. Like, sign me up. It's kind of like the combination of the technology side and memes, and but also like the what eventually I learned to be sort of this parallel economic system, right?
Hmm.
And so now Spree is trying to solve one of the core problems of actually spending your cryptocurrency.
Nice.
We can get into the details later, but really trying to make it a fully robust parallel economic system. You can't just trade and speculate. You need to actually bring some utility there.
So you got into crypto from Doge. You didn't get into
Yeah.
crypto from Bitcoin or anything prior to that. That's
No,
crazy.
yeah, I got tips some on Reddit long time ago, like
Hmm.
probably I think 8 or 9 years ago, and I mean I've heard of Bitcoin, but I've just kind of was like whatever, this is some random thing, and then I actually
A
it said
scam.
like
It's a scam,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, I did, and then I saw money there, and I'm like, well, wait, how do I get that money? And then I had to learn about wallets, and then I had to learn about mining because you had to run a full
Right.
node at that time, or at least that
Yep.
was kind of the status quo. And then I'm like, wait, you can actually build things on this. There's like companies, and so I did tokenomics, and I did consulting, and I kind of messed around with my first ideas of what this could be, and yeah, it kind of went all uphill or downhill or crazy from there, depending on how you want to look at it.
The thing I love about crypto is that people say, "Oh, it's not real. It's not real. It's not real." What do you think fiat currency is? It's
Oh,
pretty much
totally,
this. It's just as unreal as crypto, right? I mean,
totally.
we're just deciding it has this value and it has this value. So, I mean, I don't know why people diss it so much because it's basically the same thing. I mean, seriously.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's they're crypto and conventional fiat, like 90+% is all digital, so it's the
Yep.
same there.
Hmm.
They're both effectively ledgers, one's centralized, one's decentralized. Yeah, most of the money you deal with on a day-to-day basis, so I did like go on my phone, Apple Pay, I'm not like actually touching cash.
Hmm.
Really, the only difference is belief in it, right? And fiat sort of by decree, the belief is prescribed to us, and the utility and where it can be accepted is governed by laws. And something fascinating to me is like, as we have slowly gained momentum, I've changed my position on the different types of money I look at as being useful. And Bitcoin has kind of emerged as sort of a very binary outcome. I look
Mm.
at it like it either will be a thing forever or it will not and it will go to zero. I don't think that there's no middle ground here. And
Really?
ironically, you look at dollars and I mean historically it has been trending to zero. So
Yeah.
there's a compelling now newer narrative that originally it was sort of peer-to-peer digital cash, and we had the block wars and Bitcoin Cash and now Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. But that digital gold, the store of value, neutral money is
Hmm.
kind of the now popular thing. And I'm slowly convincing my TradFi friends they're getting orange pilled. But no, I think the 100K marker has been a big catalyst.
Yeah. Well, no, I think Bitcoin is going to continue moving, and it's got something to do with the scarcity, right?
Totally.
It's like anything. It's like once it gets more scarce, then it's going to keep on moving. Especially when you hear countries actually buying into it and having a crypto reserve, and I'm like, wow, if they have a Bitcoin reserve, who knows where it'll go after that, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's amazing.
Well, it's a little bit alarming too, because like I thought, Bitcoin, I look at sort of this immaculate conception, right? It had allegedly this founder who is no longer on the face of this earth or has disappeared some way or one another. Hopefully, those keys remain kind of on their own, but you never know.
Yeah.
And it is unique, and so I don't know. I'm sure you've heard the recent pump and almost full retrace of the price
Yes.
action with
I
Ripple
try
and
not to look at it. I
Cardano.
try not to look at
I know I do daily buys, and it's like I gotta kind of like just not look at the price. I do a fixed amount of money and then it accumulate, that's all you can do. But it's a little bit disheartening to see that we're grouping in Bitcoin with these other projects. ETH is a little bit more respectful or respectable,
Yeah.
but like I don't look at Ripple or Cardano in the same way I look at ETH and Bitcoin. It's just not
Oh
the
yeah,
same.
they're completely different things. But the
Yeah.
thing is that it's like when you're outside of the crypto market, you think it's all the same.
Totally. Oh
But
yeah,
once you get inside of it, yeah.
I still have friends. They're coming up to me like, "Oh, I hear Ripple can get to 10,000," and I'm like, "Dude, that's like more money than like exists in dollars." Like it's just, and
But
I'm,
that
I have to do the math on that, but
anybody who says that does not even understand what Ripple is. It's like somebody said to me, XRP, you got to buy XRP. I'm like, do you even know why they invented it? Do you even know what it's being used for? No, no, man, it's to the moon. It's to the moon.
yep.
It's
Well,
like you got to dig in. You got to
it's kind of,
understand.
you talked about scarcity too, and it's funny because the same logic that gets you into Bitcoin, while the fundamentals are supposed to be like like I said, immaculate conception, but it has this level of like distribution of the supply,
Yep.
right? That it is so distributed right now that it has a degree of like one person selling their Bitcoin does very little to the price in the medium, short, even short term, right?
Yep.
Hourly, maybe if you have a big bag, you could sell a few dollars and you would have an impact, but it wouldn't long term affect the price. And that's just not the case with these other assets. They're
Yep.
significantly more centralized. And one of the things that kind of I think could be a solution to some of these problems while regulating it fairly is just proper, you know, uh, share with the public what the allocations are and the emission
Mm,
schedule is.
mm,
Doing that publicly, the tokenomics component of that, just saying like, hey, by the way, Ripple started with 60% or whatever it was of the supply. Here's why this is an issue, and here's why they're going to release some odd percent. We're going to sell whatever. I think that could protect the public. And ironically, Pump Fund gets a lot of shit, but I think that they did something really innovative, which was protect the early tokens from being rugged immediately. The,
mm.
the whole dynamic of Pump Fund allowed for this bonding curve to exist to prevent from people immediately selling or immediately removing the liquidity from the token, and then everyone loses before it even gets to that 1 million market cap level.
Right.
That solved the problem of scarcity in that it allowed for these tokens to find that natural distribution. I expect us to do a lot more of that.
So if you were talking to somebody who knew a little bit about Bitcoin, a little bit about crypto, but they stay totally away from tokens because
Mhm.
they think it's even scammier than those,
Yeah.
like what would you what would you say to them? Let me how can you bring it down to earth?
Yeah, I think a good way to think about it is in sort of metaphors. And I think about this broadly across the ecosystem. There's really only three things that matter, and meme coins are kind of a special fourth one. As of yet, that's going to evolve. The first one is Bitcoin as a digital store of value.
Hmm.
There is a fixed supply. There will never be more, and if there is more, it probably couldn't be called Bitcoin. That's kind of a integral part of what it
Right.
represents.
I mean,
And so
there's a
that's
fixed supply, but some of it is yet to be mined, right? I mean,
totally,
there's still
yeah. So
some. Yeah.
so it's technically inflationary, but the total number of Bitcoin will flatten at 2140, and there will never be more mined in the future. And so a good way to think about that is like gold, right? Gold is mined at 2% per year, but in theory, there is a fixed amount of gold on Earth. And so
Right.
that's not going to change until, you got SpaceX going onto asteroids and totally destroying the price of gold. That's probably not going to be
That's
in
right.
the next 20 years, but
Or maybe
you never
there's
know.
gold on Mars. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
Anything's possible.
Right, and then you'll see the price of gold totally change, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of the first Bitcoin comparison. Ethereum and these other like Solana and there's a million of them. I
Yeah,
would be calling.
those are like working crypto, right? I mean,
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
people build platforms on top of those.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like to call those programmable money.
Mm.
That's like smart contracts or just code on money is
Yeah.
allows you to build some really fascinating products. And that's sort of this what may have heard of decentralized finance. If I'm talking to someone who hadn't really been in this space before, that's the layer by which they're built. You can build apps. There's entire industries kind of going to this like meme coin ecosystem. They are a silo on programmable money that is sort of the casino silo,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
People go into them knowing that, like, I forget the exact regulation recently, but they didn't rule them as an investment or rather a security because you're
Really?
not putting, yeah, because you can't put money into a meme coin expecting to make profit. That's kind of the definition, right? That's one of the
Yeah.
three Howie pillars. And so yeah, meme coins can't be prosecuted as a security because I'm not investing into those like I invest in Apple. Apple has a real business. They have real people that I trust to make me more money than I put in.
You're telling me
Um,
meme coins aren't a real business? Come on.
well, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I just, people make money all the time, but it's likely not you.
Yeah.
It's everyone else, or the one person.
Yeah.
I've lost my fair share of money on that. And then I think this kind of more conceptual idea, this last item that's gotten product market fit in the space, is stables.
Mm.
It's not sexy. It's dollars on chain, but I truly think that could be, we're at the 100, 200 million range. And we're going to get to that, 1 billion level of adoption, that sort of magnitude, that magnitude step increase of usage through using what we conventionally, already do.
Right. But I mean, isn't that cheating though? I mean, investing in the stables is basically the same as investing in regular currency. Isn't that cheating?
Kind of. I mean, you could make that argument. I think that
Hmm.
you're kind of there, and I do think that there is a sense of like if you went to someone who was into Bitcoin in 2011, they would be qualified as like someone we would call a cypherpunk. And
Right.
that cypherpunk ecosystem, they would be sort of a they would be independent of what we would call traditional finance. They think that that is a scam. They would say that's a
Right.
scam. Don't
Yeah.
invest your money in fiat. And they would have a point. You're right. It's only gone down. But I kind of think like so I look at like Facebook's adoption curve, and they had this really fascinating growth trajectory where they went, they had their initial explosion. They went like, to universities, and then they did it again, massive kind of initial growth, and that plateaued, and then they did like mobile, and then
Yeah.
they're at a couple hundred million, and they're like, well, how do we expand? Not everyone knows English. Let's go to multi-language, and then
Right.
they
So
went to
it's
the
almost like they
billions.
picked they went to different platforms, and some of them eventually platforms were actually languages and countries and things like that. So they
Yes.
just kept expanding same core service, but completely different platforms.
100%. Now, I view
Yeah.
stables as that next step. And the
Mm.
reason why is because, well, two things. I think that in order to use crypto, you need to be in the same platform, like you just
Right.
described. Stables are the fiat version of money on
Yeah.
this
And they're
decentralized
understandable.
finance.
People who don't know anything about crypto can easily understand a stable.
Yes, 100. I think within the next 10 years, likely faster, everyone will be using stablecoins without even knowing it. It's just
Yeah.
going to look like dollars. I mean, Robinhood's already doing this. They're using stablecoins to settle transactions over the weekend because
Yeah.
you can't process ACH and whatnot when it's not a business
Well,
day
isn't that
because
the
no one's
point of
there.
XRP anyway? I mean, isn't it supposed to be a replacement for Swift and things like that?
Yeah, and I'm not an expert on Ripple to be quite candid, but I think that that's the narrative. I think like, this, I don't know if they would quite say CBDC, but it is supposed to be sort of a decentralized, possibly faster version of Swift. But ironically, I think stablecoins will do that naturally. I don't think you
Yeah.
need a centralized institution. And in fact, I think with the next Genius Act that's going through Congress right now, that's going to regulate stablecoins and make it really kind of clear that, hey, stables are actually a net benefit. And in my opinion, actually a national security requirement for the United States.
Yeah.
More stables means more demand for US debt. And
Yeah.
if you don't have that, that's kind of an issue, right?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about crypto is that it kind of does what it does. Any kind of innovation does that. We go way too far
Yeah,
and then we pull back. So we went
totally.
way too far with the crypto and the meme coins, and that now we're like, oh, stables, like that's the step. Like we basically took a step back to get people to connect it back to fiat, and now we're starting to take steps forward again.
Oh, totally. I mean, you see that kind of in the political sphere too, right? Like we go really far to one side and then we're like, okay, wait, let's take one step to the left or one step to the right, and then we
Yeah.
can kind of come together. And the Overton window has moved, but it actually has unified us, ironically. I think we see that in technology adoption as well.
Right. So what does Spree do? What does Spree do in that space?
Yeah, so I think a good way to think about it in a nutshell is that we make it super easy to spend your digital assets. So, we
Not
talk
buy them,
about.
just spend them.
That's right. Well, I mean, we already kind of solved that, right? We have the buy and we have the sell. We have the speculation. We already did
Mm.
that. Ironically, if you read Bitcoin's white paper, this is, you can agree or disagree, but it does say peer-to-peer digital cash. And
Yeah.
I know
Well,
for me,
that's what it should be, but it's
it
kind of
should be.
turned into something else in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, and you could say like the narrative of Bitcoin today is like this digital cat or digital gold idea. It's not cash. No one on the face of this earth should ever buy cash with the expectation that it's going to appreciate in value,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
why would you ever do that? But the tokenomics, the supply demand dynamics of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these other projects have actually made it more game theoretically better for the
Mm.
holder to hold it. And so instead of speculating, I mean, you still speculate on it, you buy it and you sell it, but you don't use it. And so we had this whole revolution multiple times with Bitcoin Cash that was supposed to maintain this narrative of peer to peer currency. What do you
Yes.
do with currency? You spend it. You transfer it. You do not hold it. I hold gold. I do not spend gold because I think it's going to go up because I think that
Yeah.
my government will print more
Yeah, it's
money.
an investment, not a currency. That's what
Correct.
basically Bitcoin has become, right?
Yeah, but we call it cryptocurrency.
But it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. At least not until Spree came along. No, I'm kidding. That is our vision. That is our vision. We want it to be super easy to spend that crypto, but most of the time, when you go to these places that do accept crypto, they're using an integration that's really, in my opinion, not Web3 native. It's not
Yeah.
catered to the person who actually has digital assets. And so you got to scan a QR code or you got to copy an address and put it into your wallet and make sure you didn't mess up. And then, by the way, you have to get all of that to work for someone who maybe doesn't understand this.
Mm.
It can be a little bit confusing. And so we're first targeting sort of the Web3 native, the degenerate narrative of connect a wallet, scan a transaction.
Yeah.
Right. That's the sort of DeFi experience that most people have. They connect a wallet and they sign a transaction. And so we support over 3,000 currencies. And as of, we just got done. It's March 3rd. I don't know when this will go out, but we just got back from ETH Denver. I'm a little exhausted. I'm not gonna lie. I added a lot of people on Telegram, a lot of conversations, but we had some really good stuff. And we just recently launched Book It. So I like a good way to think about this is you have Ethereum and then you have apps on top of Ethereum, right? Uniswap and Aave and whatever that is. Now we have Spree, and then we have apps on top of Spree. And so
Mm,
bookit.com, which is live here, like basically right now, you can go and check it out, allows for you to spend your digital cryptocurrency on real world flights, hotels, cruises, resorts. It's kind of like a mix between Expedia and sort of a premium Amazon, because we also have real world like merchants
right.
that you can spend your crypto on. So
Yeah.
giant merchant aggregator, you can connect your in 2 clicks, right? And we support over
Nice.
3,000 cryptocurrencies. Going to be
Nice.
a lot more soon.
So when do you think we're going to get to the point where there's a mass market on here? Because the crypto market is still kind of small, right?
hmm Yeah, well, you look at the adoption curve of cryptocurrency, and we're at the like 1998, 1999. And of course, this is sort of a biased thing to say because after that's the crazy dot-com boom and bust. But like that was right before we hit sort of a pretty parabolic adoption curve on the internet. Thankfully, we have a pretty good proxy. We can look at the adoption rate of Bitcoin, and we're pretty much ahead of that, the rate of adoption of the internet in Bitcoin and in other digital assets. And
Mm,
so, you know, I don't know what app will likely onboard the future of everyone in the internet, but I view it like an iteration of the internet. And I don't think that like if we go Web 1, it was sort of we read things on the online, right? We go to Wikipedia, we can read anything at the touch of a click of a mouse or touch of our fingertips. Web 2 was writing, so I could upload a video, I could write it to the server or whatever it is that's hosting this video, and then other people can come and read my video or watch the video.
right.
And so that read write relationship is a Web 2 innovation that we got YouTube and Facebook and these more dynamic apps. And Web3 is now ownership. And so financialization of everything has sort of allowed us to understand how we can get this next 1 billion sort of mass market appeal. Am of the opinion, I mentioned stables earlier. I think we're going to be, everyone's going to just start using stables by default. And with it, they will do it because it's better. It is faster. It is cheaper. I mean, we have Visa and MasterCard as sort of this payment processing duopoly. And there was this fascinating A16Z crypto article I read recently. I forget the author, but he talked about how some of these massive enterprise level businesses, multi-billion dollar businesses, I think like Walmart or Kroger were examples. They could double their stock market price if they didn't have to pay the Visa and MasterCard fees.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
all of that. You're going to scan your credit card. You're going to do payments. I mean, there's a reason why Stripe just acquired Bridge for $1.1 billion. It's not because they just like the name. It's because they do stablecoin issuance. And
Yeah.
that connection there is huge. Like that's going to be the future. And so likely we're just going to be doing it on like sort of that sort of background layer. And we're not
Yeah.
going to know.
Because I think what's happened now is that the sort of like the mass market still feels that fiat is better because
Mhm.
like they take their money through crypto and then they bring it back into fiat. They keep it in fiat when they
Yeah.
probably should keep it in crypto. They should pick a stable and put it into the stable and just keep it in the stable because it's just as good as having it in fiat. But I think
Oh yeah.
we need some kind of cultural change or something to sort of flip the script to make people understand that's just as, if not more secure than fiat.
Well, yeah, I think it's a little scary to use like your own self-custody wallet to do these things, but thankfully, like Coinbase is making it super easy. I've changed my perspective on stablecoins pretty intensely as of late, and the reason why is because I've stopped using a what would be considered a high-yield savings account,
Mm,
and I've just started to use DeFi protocols that use stablecoins,
yeah.
and I'm earning 50% or in the bull market when it was crazy, like over 5 times the interest
Wow.
rate on my house.
Wow.
And it's not like particularly risky. Of course, right? You go to a bank, you have counterparty risk. Now it's shifted. You still have risk. It is counter protocol risk, if you will. And if the protocol gets hacked or there's some sort of, foundational issue with what you've put your money into, then it's at risk. And so those, they don't go away. They're just shifting the risk. And so it's definitely probably more risky than an FDIC insured savings account. But for 5 times better interest rate on, like, I have an Ally savings account, it's 5 times better than that. Like, I am willing and I understand the risk, and so I'm
Mhm.
okay with that. And so I think we're going to see, especially young people, as they start to come and they start to earn more money, they're going to start looking at stables as a mechanism of a savings account. And I mean, shoot, I'm trying to look for houses here soon, and it's just not possible to save in fiat. Like,
Yeah,
the rate of house appreciation is faster than any savings account you can get. And
exactly.
so, unfortunately, we talk about gambling, but like, we have edged into a behavior for young people, especially, to look at gambling as like the only way possible. And sports betting is a huge example of this.
Yeah.
Like, it's a horrible risk reward profile. You will lose in the long run all the
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah,
And so, what's the alternative? It's like crypto. That's the direction. But there
yeah.
are systems with stable coins that doesn't require that same level of risk, that can far outpace conventional savings accounts. And so
Wow.
I think,
Are you gonna give us the secret?
what
Where do I invest for the 25%, 50%
I mean, it is
upside?
it's not quite like crazy like 100% APR, but it's like sort of the blue chip in the DeFi industry. Coinbase just did this with Morpho on the base chain. Aave is an example of something I reference a lot. They both do the same service in essence, which is lending and borrowing. So
Hmm.
if you lend your stable coins into a vault, people borrow against it and pay this sort of APR APY to do so. And
Nice.
so the idea is they're a fully collateralized, over collateralized loan against your stable coins, and you're earning the upside. And so you got to look at your tax jurisdiction and all that fun stuff, because I'm
Of
sure it's
course.
taxed like revenue, normal income. But it is still even better, even with that tax consideration. And it's I feel comfortable knowing I understand the protocol, and also I understand where that revenue comes from, and the risk is known. And so it's like, even just take a look at Morpho, take a look at Aave. Even Coinbase does it for you. Like, they take a pretty big chunk, so I prefer to do it on my own, but
Yeah.
they make it pretty simple.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so it's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2035, 10 years from now. Where will you be? Where will this whole market be in 10 years?
Well, I think there's so many new products that I can't even fathom of that will exist in 10 years. I
Oh
think,
yeah.
we talked about the stablecoin idea. I think that everyone will be using stablecoins, and they won't think of it weird. They'll just think like it is a more optimal version of the conventional, traditional financial system. And we're going to upgrade, just like we upgrade the internet from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. We're going to upgrade all of the
Can
financialization
you
that we
drop
do.
your paycheck into stablecoins directly now? Is that possible, or do you have to throw it into a bank or a credit union?
I think there's probably some sort of startup up there that's allowing you to do that. I know
Mm,
Stripe allows you to accept or pay out stables based off your preference. So they do that
right.
automatic swap for you. I'm not familiar with any, payroll company. Hey, that's a great startup idea. I would use that. Especially for DeFi native projects, like,
Yeah.
you can get those payouts to run automatically. I also think that we think, for example, stable coins, kind of to continue to riff on this, the narrative that money needs to be put into a bank to make interest is going to be
Mm.
laughable in 10 years, I
Oh
believe.
yeah.
It's
It's
going to
starting to be
be
laughable now. I mean, so many
true.
people are stepping away from banks
Oh
and they're
yeah.
going, or they're going to neobanks, or they're going like
Mhm.
the next step beyond a neobank something like this,
Yeah, oh,
basically. Yeah.
100%. And in like the way it works in my mind is we're going to have projects, we're going to have startups that come out. I mean, USDC and USDT, these stablecoin issuers that are like 500 billion plus. I don't know the actual number, but something
Yeah, it's
like that.
insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and it's growing at breakneck pace. And
Mm.
so what do? What's their revenue model? Is they take in dollars, they buy short-term debt, and then they issue out these tokens, and they're
Hmm.
supposed to be pegged to dollars. You can convert through their rails, and they have all the regulatory considerations tackled, but they're making the difference in the outstanding liabilities in the form of their token and the revenue made through short-term debt. And so it comes to my mind, like, why do we need to do it like this? Why can't I earn that interest? And
Yeah.
so why our fiat dollars, why can't we just stream it back to the owner? And there are regulatory issues with that, but I think in the next 10 years that'll be super normalized. And like, there will not be a concept of a savings account that isn't like streaming short-term debt yield. And I guess to step again over that, I mentioned this earlier, but I think about stablecoins as a true solution to the debt problem that we see in the United States.
Mm,
We're at this sort of, I think Ray Dalio talks about this in a fascinating way. He says that we are currently in the early stages of a long-term debt cycle.
mm.
Short-term debt cycles, we have this big COVID credit expansion. We airdrop a bunch of money to everyone, and then we kind of have to pull it back because inflation went a little crazy, and people are sad, and I want my money, and all these things occur over time, and we over these small debt cycles we build up a larger debt base, and so we need to think about the next time we expand credit, we also need to print money, but we accumulate more debt in that system, in that process. And so increasing the interest rate like we did a couple years ago results in the interest on our US government debt to becomes incredible. Like we are at the
Oh yeah.
point where it is an unavoidable sort of runaway issue. But there's a challenge. We can't just pull it back, A, for inflation, but B, debt is a market. And the buyer is countries. And so
Yes.
these countries are looking for the best debt. They want to not only think, okay, if I have dollars, I need to be making at least 5%, say, but we also need to think 5% plus how much inflation, and
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
inflation is way higher now. And so the problem is if you look at these countries, they are starting to sell US debt. Either it's because they don't believe in it or because they think inflation is going to be higher than what the current interest rate is pricing out. And so what's the solution if you're a federal bank? It's either increase the interest rate higher, which hurts your currency, or,
Yep.
or do some sort of fancy quantitative easing, which is a fancy way of saying we're going to print more money, or
Yeah.
actually Hands version, yield curve control, print more money. Ultimately, it results in bad situations. And so
Yes.
I would be surprised if within the next 10 years we don't see some form of this. However, I could see a fascinating, stablecoin bailout, if you will, of
Mm.
the United States debt by being sort of this buyer of last resort. And so when I own stablecoins, I own them frequently because I'm trying to escape my native country's level of inflation. So
Right.
I'm a Nigerian or an Egyptian, and I'm trying to avoid 60% or whatever inflation rates. And so I'm going to own USDC. And
Mm.
I don't get yield on that. But the bank or the issuer does, and they get it by buying United States debt. And so this is a long-winded way of saying I think stablecoins are going to be multi-trillion, 10, 20, 50 trillion dollars in the next 10 years or more, because they're going to be all of the United States debt. It's going to be like a giant funnel into the crypto ecosystem. And that
Nice.
means that everything in the ecosystem, everything in crypto is going to be, we're going to be happy.
Nice. So is it a particular stablecoin that you think is going to skyrocket, or is it going to be just all of them?
Well, as of late, you would be seeing a lot of regulation around. There are attempts by certain stablecoin issuers today to become sort of the de facto US
Yeah.
dollar stablecoin. I
Yeah.
don't think that's a good idea. I think it prevents fair competition. It's
Yeah.
just regulatory capture, but for Web3.
Yeah.
And so I hope that it is not one stablecoin. I hope that there's a process that everyone can go through to issue their own, and there's going to be some sort of guardrail that makes the United States government happy, and they say go ahead, issue all you want, and you can
Yeah.
do whatever you need. So I hope not. I feel like it's not going to be the case if like versus what I hope or what I think. I think there is going to be competition. And USDC is sort of the popular one in the US, but
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see more even decentralized cryptocurrencies that are stable coins. That's growing in popularity as well. So
Excellent.
I think there's a path there that doesn't force us into sort of the centralization dystopia that some people have.
Speaking of centralization, what about the CDBC? I mean, you hear a lot of chatter about it. Is it coming? Is it not coming? Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen?
You
What are your
know,
thoughts?
that's a good question. I hope not. I think that
I don't think
I,
any of us want it, really.
I guess it depends on who's watching, right? I hope not. I don't think it'll happen, primarily because there are a lot of people in the ear of the current United States regime
Right.
who feel strongly that they can make money for their own self-interest, and that results in CBDCs being banned. And
Yes.
it's also just a popular sort of position to say we are not China, we are,
Yeah.
US, we're not going to do what they do.
Yeah.
And that's in some ways that's not totally correct, but regardless, I think that there is going to be a push for self-interest in countries, or rather United States and different companies will sort of meet this mutually beneficial market solution, which
Mm.
is we're not going to go CBDCs because there's a shitload of money to be made not doing that. And I
Right.
think that's the best outcome for all of us.
If that is the outcome, that's probably the direction we're going to go in. That
Well,
makes
and
total sense.
and if I could easily use my stables to like permissionlessly buy Bitcoin and store that value in a sort of one of the most effective mechanisms of preserving wealth from a scarcity perspective, I think that that's going to be a massive boom for the Bitcoin holders. And as we've seen throughout these different processes, if you're going to talk about this sort of Bitcoin super cycle, I think that how it goes is stable coins become the de facto medium of exchange within the United States. That
Yes.
funnels into the store value of Bitcoin, and
Mhm.
then that funnels on to risk on assets within the crypto industry. So if Bitcoin has this massive multi-trillion-dollar influx of capital from stables, that's just going to funnel down into ETH and Solana and all these projects. And this is the long-term stablecoin play.
Yeah.
Like that is what we, I think, see as a Bitcoin super cycle, where it's I don't know how fast or how parabolic, but that's like the 10-year play. I think
Yeah.
what is Michael Saylor says, like something absurd, like 8 million or something
Yeah.
crazy.
No,
But like
I believe that. I
I don't
believe
think
it.
that
One
that's
day.
actually that far off. Yeah.
One day.
Yep.
Totally. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Very fascinating. So, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'm at Krazink, at Crazink. We're
Mhm.
also Spree Finance, at Spree Finance, or you can take a look at Spree.finance. Yeah, we're love to get in contact. If you're a builder in the space, we're trying to see how we can add real world commerce utility to your protocol and your project, and just also people who are interested in decentralized commerce and commerce DeFi, and kind of what that unlocks. I think that there's a lot of stuff that people talk about philosophically, and I think commerce is the path to sort of unlocking that in the real world. So yeah, I'd love to. I'm a nerd for this stuff. I'd love to chat. If you have any questions, just ping me or shoot me a tweet or whatever.
Awesome. So, I'll put everything in the show notes, links to everything in the show notes so people can go direct. So, thank you so much. It's been great.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. This
Thank
was
you.
fun.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.